So earlier this month, by the way, halfway through the month, that's crazy. I forgot when I gave up last year. I gave up sometime last year. Doing VEDS during freshman semester, not a good idea. So at the beginning of the month, I talked about childhood wonder, specifically talking about going to see Willy Wonka and seeing the reaction of the kids who had never seen it before. Today, I want to talk about my experience with childhood wonder as a child. I was stock full of childhood wonder. Many of you will probably know the definition of nerd that John Green has laid out, where it's like, I forget the exact term, but it's like enthusiastically loving something. And if that's the definition you go with, I have been a nerd for my whole life because I would just get so deep into things, whether that's my dad reading me Narnia, me listening to the Redwall books, when I discovered Star Wars, when I discovered Lord of the Rings. Point is, I got into stuff as a kid. But one stands out for the simple reason that it is the only movie that's ever made me cry. And that is E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The classic Steven Spielberg coming-of-age movie. And when I watched it, and I don't remember this, but this is what my family tells me, and I tend to trust them on most things. Apparently, at the end of the movie, I cried because it was so beautiful. Which is great. That's what every wannabe filmmaker, they want a story like that, where it's like, I also have a story about when I first went to the theaters and I went to see Chicken Run, and I looked up into the projector and I couldn't stop looking up because I thought it was so cool that I could see the images being projected onto the glass and then onto the screen. But these are all the stories that we filmy type people want to have. Stories about how film has affected us. But why E.T.? Because as a kid, I loved Narnia. I loved going to see that in the theater. I loved reading the books with my dad. It never affected me quite like that. I had a reaction to the events going on in the story. I never had a reaction to the form of it, though. To the art as a medium. So what was it about E.T. that made me have a reaction like that? Well, the short answer is, I don't know. I loved aliens as a kid. And I thought it was so cool to see a movie with an alien where the alien was the protagonist. And I really related to Elliot, and I thought it was really good. But the problem is, I don't really remember seeing it for the first time. I remember bits of it, and I remember like little flashes, but I don't remember I don't have a very good memory of seeing it for the first time. So I don't know what about the form made me appreciate it as an art form so much. Of course, you could chalk that up to Steven Spielberg's directing. He has a great understanding of how to present something through a child's gaze, and also how to have a sense of, this is how I feel something he does that's unique to him, is have a sense of nostalgia for something you've never seen before, or a time period you've never seen before. I have this with Indiana Jones, or not that you've never seen before, but you never lived in, where Indiana Jones will make me nostalgic for the 40s, or where E.T. will make me nostalgic for the 80s, even though I was not alive then, and not really wanting to go back, but feeling like I'd been there, right? Like Stranger Things, it's cool. You get sucked into the world, it builds a cool environment, but I don't feel like I've been in the 80s. Back to the Future makes me really like the 80s, and I think it would be cool to go back there and see everything, and it makes me feel like I have a better understanding of what the 80s were from a consumerist point of view, but I don't feel like I'd been there. Steven Spielberg makes me feel like I've been in not just the 80s when the film was made, but in the film. There's such a relatability to that movie, and I think that's one of the things that really hooked me in. The second off is just the pure cinematic wonder of this movie. It is a we all have that image of the bike flying over the moon, but that is the definition of of a cinematic moment that has perfect build-up, that has perfect establishment, and when it hits, because of the way they've been building up, it hits you really hard. The second scene that really just slams onto the emotional cinematic view is the scene in the lab with the frogs. How he intercuts that with the old footage as E.T. watches it. Making us appreciate cinema as we see it affects E.T. and as the movie that we're watching affects us in a similar fashion. It's really cool. But I don't know if any of the stuff I just said was what made me feel that way as a kid, because I was just a kid. But I guess my point, and the reason I wanted to try to figure this out, is because I don't think you can figure it out. I think part of what's great about childhood wonder is that you don't figure it out. That is what you experienced as a child, and it was so pure, and it was so unique, and it was so original to you. I don't believe in originality. That's another video. But I feel that we can perceive things as original, especially as kids. And I think that is what formed in me that night when I watched E.T. And it's not really something you can express because you can never get it back because you're not going to be a kid again. Which is kind of sad. But then, of course, we grow up and we form critical thinking and taste, which help us. But there is a sense of watching media as a child with nothing, no cynicism, nothing to hold you back from just purely immersing yourself into the form of it, that I think has such a really cool effect. So if you have any stories about childhood wonder and what just blew your mind as a kid, I would love to hear them. This video was long and rambly, but I'm glad I did it because as I made the video I thought out some stuff and it was interesting. So guys, goodbye.